We can get to it. All right, so we live. All right, guys. I'd like to welcome you to Ballers in Crypto. This is a show that we have been planning for a little while now in reference to your professional athletes that are in the crypto space. And you guys know me, Garrick Jones. I have been in a lot of different business dealings, developmental football league where we intertwine crypto into it. Now we have a community that we're building out called Fancentric that is based around crypto, NFTs, those types of things. A lot of you guys are in my groups now, and we're going to give it a little chance for everybody to kind of filter in. But at the end of the day, this is myself, Mr. Charles Stackhouse, and then we got Ms. Corey Carter that's going to be asking questions and moderating. So I'm going to let her get to it, and I'll start sharing these links because we had to switch from Facebook Live to Zoom, connect that to Facebook Live, and now we're here. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get this thing rocking and rolling, and I'll get some links out to everybody so we can get everybody in. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Garrick. Yeah, so let's change it up a little bit so that we can give people a little bit time to join in, and you can do what you need to do on your side, Garrick. And I'll start out with the questions with Stack. You ready, Stack?
Oh, of course, always.
So the first question is how did you manifest your goals as an NFL player?
It all started with having a goal to set. Of course, the first goal was making it to the NFL. And, of course, they say only 1% of athletes get to make it to the NFL. So that was the first goal that I had set when I was young. I'd say around maybe 13, 14, I always, used to watch the NFL games and see some of the greats and be like, man, I want to be like those guys. I want to, be a professional. I want to, I was always raised, my dad was military, so he was always strict and always kept me going in the right path. So when I started setting my goals, that kind of made me, like, if I'm going to set a goal, I'm going to work towards that goal. I'm not just going to set it and say, hey, it's going to happen. I set the goal, and every single day of my life, from high school to college, every single day was dedicated towards that goal. As far if it was conditioning, if it was training my mind, preparing for the next game, making every game like your last game, all the way from there, it was like set the goal, not just set the goal, but work very, very hard towards that goal daily until that goal is met. And that was one of my biggest things as a youth. I always look towards the future, and looking towards the future. When I set those goals, I had already acquired in my mind that goal was going to be attained. It just was going to take time.
So you were setting goals at the early age of 13 and 14 years old.
Yes.
From your experience in watching the NFL. Now, who were your favorite teams?
I used to always have the little miniature San Francisco 49ers players. I remember when I was young, here's a good story. When I was younger, a teenager, I broke my femur. And, the doctor used to always say, hey, sorry, you'll never play football again. You broke the biggest bone in your body. I can't see you being able to play a full contact sport again. And to where I am now, all of the naysayers telling me, no, it can't happen. It's not going to happen. And me setting that goal and saying, yes, it is going to happen one day. That was like one of the biggest accomplishments of my life, was setting a goal, a lifelong goal, and accomplishing that goal and moving forward from it.
Did you ever have a doubt at that age? Or were you always?
I did. I was always positive, but with everything else, with every trial, there's tribulations. With every, everything that you do positive, there's something, negative that's going to happen to kind of deter that. Or I would say test you to say if you're really ready for that, big accomplishment. I did have tests. There were times where I was like, I wanted to give up. I had a kid at an early age, which kind of, put like I'm not going to say put like a stop on it, but kind of put a obstacle in the way at an early age. I have to take care of a kid. I have to go to school. I have to maintain my life. I have to keep working towards this goal that I've set, all of those things. And there was bumps in the road. There was times I wanted to give up, but, I was fortunate to have a great support system, with my mom and my dad, my sisters. I have six brothers, one sister. So I have I had a big support system at that time of, I would say inner family fans that kind of like kept me going every day. When I wanted to quit, I called mom, hey, we don't quit. We're Stackhouses. We don't stop. We always push forward, and all of those conversations and, all of those things, it all accumulated to me accomplishing what I accomplished in life.
So having the name Stackhouse. So were you called by Charles Stackhouse, or were you called Stack? What were you called?
It was I would say it was hereditary. Everywhere I went, I'll tell someone my name, and it always ended up being Stack for short, so
right.
And that's everywhere I went. It was from college, from high school, to even if I'm going on a business venture, a business meeting with someone, or it was always Stack. Hey, Stack, what's up? If it was the guy that used to call my games when I was in high school, it's always been Stack. So that's just something that's always stuck with me.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. So Stack is what's a typical day in the life of the NFL like?
I'll say work. I've been retired for a while now, but even when I was playing, it's you wake up, you brush your teeth, you wash your face, and by that time you're rushing to get to the stadium because they want you there early to lift weights. Usually my day starts, lifting weights before 6 a.m. And, usually after 6 a.m. around, I'd say about 7 a.m., there's usually a full team meeting to where we meet as a team, go over what we went through yesterday or the day before. If there was a game, we had a day off, and we come back after that day off and go over things. And we start there, we leave from there, and we go to what we call an individual meeting, which for me, I was a fullback. So I was with the running backs and the running back coach for my individual meetings. And after the individual meetings, we'll split off into a little small special teams segment meeting to where, I was always a part of every single special teams. And I've always prided myself in that from day one. Being in high school, I was part of the Dandy Dozen, the 12 that played every single special team. So it was, it was something I prided myself in all the time. We leave special teams meetings, then we'll go out to the field and get some on-hand training. We'll start with the team, get together as a team, go over, stretches, get your stretches done, and then we'll branch off into individual practices, which will be with the individual coach, the running back coach for me. And, that day really just getting started at that point, after all of that.
Just getting started.
It wasn't that time, or you still had a full day, or?
About that time, we're pushing maybe 10 o'clock. If it's 10 o'clock, we're pushing to it's still early in the morning. I would say you can still smell the dew in the grass when you go out there. So yeah, it was that early, and those practices last usually, a few hours, where we'll go through a full practice, and then after practice, we're right back to meetings. Everybody go in, get their showers, leave the showers, go to your individual meeting, go over that practice for the day on film, look at it, critique it, let them critique it, and it's a full day. It's a full day of work. It's more than a 9 to 5 for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Fancy. We just see you suit up for a game day on Sunday. So you actually really learn or earn your salary.
Oh, that's the beginning of one day.
Yeah, and then some. And then some.
It goes. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Garrick can tap in. It goes, man. That day is a long day. By the time the day's over, you're mentally drained. You're physically drained. Your body's tapped out. You know, you just want to go home, get a real shower, and just relax for the rest of the day.
Right.
Yeah.
So, throughout your career, can you let us know, past or present, is there any NFL player that you would like to meet that you've never met before?
Oh man, I could tell you this. I could go on and on and on. I've met one that I always wanted to meet, Purple People Eater, Chuck Foreman. He invited me to his show when I was with Minnesota. He invited me to his talk show, and I went down, got to meet him. I actually changed my football number for the first time ever to his Purple People Eater number for the Minnesota Vikings for the rest of that season. It was pretty cool. Nice little thing, you know, just to meet someone like that. But yeah, Bo Jackson. You know, one guy I would really love to sit down and see, you know, just talk to him on how he did everything he did in the 24 hours that he had. You know, it was just, it was just so much, you know. So that's just one of the guys I wish I could sit down and talk to and have a conversation with.
Yeah, that was a good selection. I would say Bo Jackson too. You know,
yeah.
Like you said, he just had a short time. You know, it's before.
Yeah, man, a monster before his time, most definitely.
So, can you tell me of any type of? Was there any event or anything that happened in the NFL that was just hilarious, that just, you know, made you laugh and you just couldn't believe it happened? Has anything like that happened out there on the field?
Oh man. I've had a lot of things happen on the field, you know, but it wasn't quite funny. It was actually intimidating, but it was funny when it happened. I'll tell you, it was Tiki Barber. I was watching this from the sideline. Now we was in a single back. I was the fullback. I only go in when it's I formation or, you know, split back or something like that. And so I'm watching. It's against the Washington Redskins. I actually scored that game too. It was against the Washington Redskins, and I was watching the defensive end, Arrington. He Tiki was going to block him for carry. And if you know Tiki, you know his stature and his size. It's like he jumped and literally hurdled Tiki like he was he hurdled him like he was like a hurdle on the track and field and went to get Kerry Collins. And I was like, man, like how, you know, it was actually intimidating because I knew I had to block that guy on some plays. But man, it was funny to see that because all you see is this big figure just go straight over Tiki's head. And next thing you know, you're like, oh no, he's coming to carry. You know, he's going to sack Kerry Collins. That was one of the most amazing, you know, if you knew that guy, his size and physique is almost like a giant statue, like you're looking at a human giant. You know, his shoulders, one of those no necks, you know, big guys, no neck, just all muscle, you know, 6'6", 330 pound of solid muscle. You know what I'm saying? And 300, I wouldn't say 330. I say at least 280. I'll give him 280.
Yeah, 285. Yeah.
But solid muscle though, just jumping over somebody like it was like they was like a toy or something. You know, just it was intimidating and funny at the same time. Just to get that.
Garrick, any funny incidences or anything that happened to you on the field?
Oh man, I think I'll just echo what Charles was saying. You know, to be out there, you know, to grow up and see guys on TV, number one, and then all of a sudden you're out there with them. It's kind of a surreal type of deal. But when you're out there and just the speed of everybody, and a lot of times, I think for me, you catch yourself watching guys, you know, and just watching what they do and how fast they are. And once you do that, a couple of plays, I mean, you pretty much messed up the plays that you were in there, right? So it's kind of that thing, you kind of catch yourself being in awe for a second, but then you realize that you're there for a reason as well. And then you pick the speed right back up. And the coaches won't allow you to stay to be slow too long. You know, they'll get to you and let you know what's going on and those types of things. But I mean, I think that was just the speed of the game having to be able to go to another gear, because I thought I was fast until I got around some guys that, were my size or bigger. And I was like, man, these are some big guys. And I'm sitting there and I'm the same size, or I'm a little bit smaller than them, but it's like, it'll change your whole perspective when you're out there on the field, because a lot of times the fans don't get a chance to see it, from the inside, and on the field. You have a lot of armchair quarterbacks and everybody else that say, okay, I can do this, I can do that, but it's a different animal when you're out there and the bullets are real. So I think that was like one of the scariest parts, but it was like, once you get used to it, then you're in it, and it's part of the deal.
Always right, that so first hit.
I'm going to ask.
Yeah. That first hit, get that out the way.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to just one last question, and I think everybody will want to know, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of Ballers and Crypto.
All right.
So for both of you.
Okay.
What are the 5 top artists that you listen to on your playlist when you're working out?
5 top artists?
5 top.
Ooh, I can start. I'd say for me, it's Nas, Scarface. Who else? Fiend, Big Mike, and then I'd go. Right now, I'll say Nipsey Hussle. Is that 5? No, that's 4 or 5.
That's 5.
Oh,
I think that's 5.
That's a good 5, man.
Yeah. I had to go before 5. You, Doc.
Hey, you snooze, you lose.
Yeah,
hey,
exactly.
That's a good 5, though.
Yeah,
man. I'll tell you. For me personally, I was from the South, and everybody, around my time, you had to know who Pastor Troy was.
Yes, sir.
We ready.
Uh-huh.
Everybody know who exactly that was. That was like that's like when I walk in and I sit down and I get in my zone. I want to think to myself. I turn that on real quick just to go ahead and get the jitters out,
right.
and just to go ahead and get the adrenaline flowing. And after Pastor Troy, like he said, it goes all the way down to, the Goody Mob, those guys that kept me going. For me, I love, it's just something about the Southern rappers, and the Southern rappers like Young Jeezy and, those guys and they always, the Snowman and T.I., and listening to T.I. and 3-6 Mafia, you know what I'm saying? DJ Paul and those tracks that those guys laid down and tear the club up and, to get the adrenaline going.
Yeah, you gotta have that.
And, I was a fullback, it was just, when I came out there, I smiled a lot, but when I came out there, I couldn't come playing around. I had to hit the linebackers. I had to hit the defensive ends. I had to hit the tackles. It was play.
Everybody.
You name them, I had to hit them. And I had to protect my quarterback. I had to protect my running back. I had to make sure that I absorbed that first hit, that first point of contact. So I had to listen to music like that. I don't know if that was 5 or not, but Scarface, man, you can go on and on to that music that just throw you in the zone when you hear the beat. When you hear it come on, you just like, oh yeah, it's that time. And then you go out. And I'll tell you, I'm gonna throw on the last one, I'm gonna throw in a wrench, Phil Collins.
Okay.
I can feel it coming in the air tonight.
Yeah. The build up.
I had to throw that one in there, because that's what they played before, when I was in college.
In the stadium.
Yeah, that's what they played before. We was Mississippi before we played against Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. That's the feeling that was in the air. That's the music that was being played. And man, you took me back there. I'm sorry.
Because I think if any T.I. song, if I played football, the song I'd be like, "You Don't Know Me."
Right.
Yeah. That's it. Oh man. That was the feeling. That was the music.
You had to have that mentality. I mean, it's you almost had to be crazy. If you really sit back and you look back on it, like, going through training camp, and a lot of people don't know this, your day's starting 4 in the morning, and it's Groundhog's Day. So it's every day it's the same thing. You're eating the same stuff. You're seeing the same individuals until they start making the cuts. You're running plays. And by 8 o'clock, you're running into grown men as hard as you can. By 8 o'clock, no, most people are, they got some coffee. They might be reading the paper. They might be, getting ready to go into work or whatever. But yeah, no, we were running into grown men. Like, it was crazy. So I always think back on those training camp days when, we were 20, 25 days in, 2 a days, full pads, no breaks.
You made it.
Yeah.
You made it.
But it's like, it's that whole mental toughness aspect of it. You got a chance to see what people were made of. And a lot of the teammates that I have, Charles included, when you can go through a training camp with somebody and see that they showing up every day, it speaks to their character. They may have the situation at home where they're taking care of their family, might be married, all these different things, so many different people, depending on them. And that bleeds over into the business world. It's one of those things where you got to have that mental toughness because you got a lot of people looking at you. So training camp, man, a lot of people don't get that, and I think back in this heat in Houston, I'm like, man, I don't know how we made it, but when you have those responsibilities, you make it happen. And somebody's trying to take the food out your family's mouth. So you got to make sure you send them home and you're not going home. So you got to be a little crazy with this thing, man.
Yeah.
So speaking of the business world and making that transition, I'd like for both of you to take 3 to 4 minutes to give a little background on yourselves and then explain to us how this partnership developed for Fancentric and Alpha Genesis.
Right. I hit that one off, man. I'll tell you, I've known Garrick for a long time, all the way from All-Star to, high school to, all the way to where we are now. And we've always been about the athlete, the fans. Whenever we do something, we do it for the fans. We do it for the athletes that's coming behind us, the ones that's going to be coming when we're done. And so we've always been in that position by making it to where we made it, to where we could stand out. We could stand out in a conversation. We can stand out in a crowd. And that was one thing, that was one way that how we kind of like, got to know each other, and I'll tell you, on the business aspect, I've been working, there's this cryptocurrency, and I've been around cryptocurrency for a long time. And I'm sure Garrick's been around cryptocurrency for a while as well, because I can remember him saying, hey, I'm going to have that developmental league, and it's going to be ran by, cryptocurrency. And this was back before, people was talking about some of the things they talking about right now.
Right.
And even back then, from the athlete phase, he didn't have to, like, when he started to talk about those type of things, it instantly caught my attention, and I was like, man, I got a lot of athletes that, need to hear this, a lot of athletes that need to be a part of this. So me and Garrick, we got together and out from where I was from, my high school, and we had a tryouts for the State's Developmental Football League, where we brought some of the greatest players from all areas of Arkansas out, that was at that current time. Some of the best, some of the greatest running backs, and, some of the running backs that, the players that really was about, football. And me personally, I handled those guys, mentoring those guys. When Garrick came down, we trained them, and we took a good look at them, and, most some was ready, some wasn't, and so we basically dug into these guys, and it sparked a new interest for me as well, to help someone in times that we're in right now. If you're not lending a hand out, helping someone, if you've already done something, you're just in the way. You're just basically in the way of the world itself. The world is going to pass you by. So that basically put me in position to where I was like, okay, I'm mentoring these guys. Now I need to start talking to some of these guys about some of this financial stuff that they're not going to get if they do make it to the NFL, which only 1% makes it. So what are you going to do if you don't make it? That was my question to all of the athletes that I ran into. Yeah, I want to play. What you want to do when you go out? Yeah, I want to play in the NFL. I want to do this. I want to do that. Yeah, only 1% of the, athletes make that, right? Oh, for real? Yeah, for real. So what are you going to do if you didn't make it? That was one of the main things that I would talk to these guys about. And some of them understood it like, man, I need to start now because I'm young. If I start now and I start investing into myself now, by the time I'm 26, I'm 30, I wouldn't have to start then. I would already have started. So, being around Garrick and what he was doing with the State's Developmental Football League and being around, cryptocurrency in itself, I was, always going to the different cryptocurrencies. Say if I like a cryptocurrency, I'll invest in that cryptocurrency and I'll work for that cryptocurrency just because I like it and I like what it gives. I like what it offers. That led me to Alpha Genesis. Well, it started with Defender of Doge, which that moved into a whole different, where the meme coins had started to lose traction. So Defender of Doge had to transform into something that was bigger than what it was even when we first thought of it when I came onto the team. And that being Alpha Genesis, a totally tradable cryptocurrency where you could actually earn different cryptos just from holding this one currency. And that's when I was like, I've always wanted, I've heard some of the richest people say, if you're not investing into many different things, you're not really investing, or you're not really pushing for the future. So what I had to do is I had to diversify, not just have Bitcoin, not just have Ethereum, not just have Litecoin, not just have XRP, but I had to develop a habit to where I was investing into the future cryptocurrencies as well. Like if that was one of the biggest things, and that's how I made money. Even when I invested early in some of the Safe Moons and the Baby Doges, the Doges, all of those. When I was investing into those, I knew that they were kind of like ahead of their time, because even with Safe Moon, once they were offering tokenomics, I knew that they were ahead of their time. They started that stuff. They were like, you get a percentage just from holding the token, while these other people that's going to trade it up and trade it down are going to keep trading it, but you're going to keep receiving and you're going to still have your token. That to me, is when I see things like that, that's when I started diversifying everything that I was doing. And that led me to Alpha Genesis, because the NFT market alone is changing the world. It's changing the world piece by piece. You have tokens that's creating tokens and linking it to NFTs, and distributing money to cancer researchers. You have tokens that's, these NFTs are going to one day be like the deeds to your house, are going to one day be like your driver's license, perhaps. Right. Are going to one day be like, hey, you need this to get in this building. You got to have this NFT, and I could see it being things like that, and actually being your bank, your checking account, because that's how it is with Alpha Genesis, man. I keep my money in, I buy the NFTs, I hold the NFTs, and every Friday and every other Friday, I get a payday. You know what I'm saying? And I ain't got to come out of my pocket nothing.
Right.
All I got to do is just hold, because I'm going to invest anyways. And so that's just goes to show how an NFT can change the way you actually make money. And now what you guys have with Fancentric, and that's just me, how I came into this whole situation, Alpha Genesis. I talked to Garrick one day and I was like, man, I see you working with Fancentric. I see you trying to, get that thing rolling. Well, hey, I'm working for a cryptocurrency, and I happen to know a dev that could get some things done that you need. And, and me being, one of those guys that's going to reach out to guys and help wherever I can, I stepped in, me and Garrick, we was talking every single day. We've been, talking on the phone or, some kind of way, Zoom, whether it's Zoom, it's all kind of different connection methods that these guys have taught me by connecting with them. But, after connecting with them for so long, it's come to a point now to where Fancentric is going to change. It's going to change the way you.
Got the kiddos.
Oh man, and they are at it, boy.
You know what it is. It don't stop.
And they are at it, man. but I tell you, you know, it's one of those things to where we had to, you know, come together. And Garrick is probably going to get into that with you on how an NFT could actually change the way that you know, look at money, and the way that you look at, you know, when you come into, you know, things that the bank aren't going to give you, cryptocurrency can offer. Right. You know, so much passive income. But we came in, we was like, hey, I got these guys, I have these devs, we're going to get these devs to work closely with Garrick, whatever Garrick come up with, let's see if we can make it happen. And that's how we got here today with the Ballers in Crypto. And man, we spreading the word. You know, if you're a fan, if you're a player, if you're a coach, if you're, you know, you're just a normal person that's trying to gain financial literacy and trying to get your next leg up in life, you know, to where you don't have to work those 9 to 5s and work yourself to sleep every night, you know, and you actually get to, you know, take care of your kids and have fun with your kids and see your kids grow and you know, see them, you know, have an opportunity in the future. You know, that's some of the main reasons why I even walked into crypto, because, you know, the future is that I've always been a future driven person. You know, I believe in UFOs. I believe there is one out there somewhere. So I do believe in the future. So there you go.
Speaking of passive income, Garrett, can you chime in on how FanCentric is going to play a role into income and how the partnership is going to move this crypto forward?
Yeah, one of the things that really attracted me about, you know, what Charles and Mike and Tony and those guys were doing at Alpha 8 was the fact that they had so many different aspects of passive income, so many different ways to generate revenue from 1 to 2 tokens or 1 to 2 NFTs. And I've always been about that, multiple streams of income, being able to create generational wealth, all those things. Even when we started the State's Developmental Football League back in the day, like 2011, my thing was, how do we get these athletes or help them get to a position where they have multiple streams of income coming in to where they ultimately can really focus on developing themselves and going to the next level and not having to work at warehouse jobs and graveyard shifts and so on and so forth. So we tried to figure out, you know, different ways to have many different streams. And when I got a chance to dive into what, you know, Alpha was about, and the fact that, you know, Charles had reached out and said, man, we've been watching, you know, the launches you guys are trying to do, the different things that you have on the table, it just made sense. You know, because I think we undervalued what we were doing at FanCentric and how we looked at the launch and how we looked at what we were doing. Because this thing is so big. It's basically taking, you know, what Green Bay did back in the day and allowing fans to have shares in these particular teams that, you know, we will look to acquire at a later date. But the way they have things structured for their NFTs and their tokens, it makes all the sense in the world, because we want to raise the economic ceiling of our members, so they can get to a point to where they can actually walk away from their 9 to 5s. We want them to be considered accredited investors. And the only way to do that is to give them as many different options as possible, even in a bear market, with the different ways that things are set up through Alpha Genesis and Alpha X and Alpha 8. For us to be able to bring that type of scenario into what we're doing with FanCentric is just going to add more value for our members and people that want to be a part of what we're doing, be it that they want to have some governance in what goes on with these teams, they want to have some say, voting rights, or they just want to make some money. We want to be able to give them as many different options as possible. So that's one of the things that really attracted me to it. And the fact that, you know, guys were knowledgeable and the language, you know, we were speaking the same language. Like I say, I go back to us, you know, being from the same state, right? You know, I would pick up the paper and I see Charles Stackhouse picture, right? He in West Memphis, I'm in North Little Rock. And it's probably an hour and a half, maybe an hour and 45 minutes away from each other, right? And same grade, you know, same scenario. He's on the other side of the state. I'm on my side, but it was just a kindred spirit and I watched him grow as I was growing. And then all of a sudden, we're playing in the All-Star game together, right? And getting to know each other like that. Then he goes to Ole Miss and I go to Arkansas State, and we end up playing each other in college, and linking back up, and I'm still keeping up with him. And he goes to the league, I go to the league, and we still keeping up with each other. Then eventually we are here in Houston in the same squad together for a bit, right? So it just, for us to go through it the way we did, like, I know what he's cut from. I know what cloth he's cut from. There's no hidden agendas. Just like it is with me, there's no hidden agendas. I want everybody to eat. I want everybody to win. So if everybody wins and is winning around me, that means I'm doing pretty good. And he's that type of cat, man. And that's what I needed. That's what this fan-centric movement needed. Somebody who really didn't have the hidden agendas or really just looking out for themselves. This thing is going to be so big to the point to where we're going to create generational wealth, and we're going to be able to leave an inheritance, for our children, and that's what this thing is all about. And like I say, it was just a kindred spirit just to sit down and talk with him, and for him to keep up with what we were doing with fan-centric on his own, and reach out to me like, gee, I see this. We went through this. We looked at this. We looked at these smart contracts. Here's where this is going. And for us to have history, I said, man, listen, let's talk, and that's how we got to this point today, to be able to put this partnership together, and just make it beneficial for everybody that's a part of what we're going to be doing with these NFTs. And then eventually, how we're going to structure the DAO, and how we're going to eventually buy out some of these professional organizations and teams and run them the right way. And I'll kind of get into what that incubation process looks like of what we got in fan-centric too.
So in previous AMAs, I've heard you both speak about sports and how sports is really recession proof. Right. Can you both briefly speak about that and tell us your thoughts behind sports being recession?
Well, I can hop in real quick. You just think about, what the significance of COVID, what that brought to the table for everybody. Everybody was in the house. Everybody was locked down, and they were still trying to figure out how to facilitate sports, because they know people need outlets. And that's from a psychological standpoint, man. If you're in the house and you don't have any outlets, that's trouble. But when, COVID kind of died down a bit, and everybody was able to get out of the house, the first thing they wanted to do was go to the stadiums. They wanted to get back to some normalcy. And those are the things that I looked at, because, at that time I was really focusing on, trying to be a general manager in the NFL, getting close to the fans out here in Houston. Was trying to, get in with them in reference to being a general manager at the time, and it was a vacancy there. But as I started, doing my case studies and really looking at it, I understood that, realistically, sports and professional sports in general is like, the new gold. And, case in point with the Broncos, for how much they sold for and what they're doing, all of the values have raised, and coming out of COVID, the salary cap for the NFL is raised, the value of the teams have raised, and it's just going to keep going up. You got the TV deals, you got all these different things, but not just professional sports in general, being able to give people outlets and all those different things. So what I looked at was said, if we can add value and have it where, you could be going to your semi-pro organizations, your games or soccer games or whatever, and you're still making passive income from that, you got something special. So that you pretty much covered the entire realm and the spectrum, from professional sports all the way down. So that's really what, this whole fan-centric situation is, how it really, the origins came from the State's Developmental Football League, but were honed in during COVID. And it just made sense for us to just make this move and say, look, we're going to be the organization that's going to set the standard when it comes down to crypto and professional sports. If that
Charles, on that, for as far as recession is concerned in sports?
You're muted, Doc.
Basically what, Garrick was tapping in on, being recession proof. One of the big things that showed that was COVID, like he said. It showed that, you're going to be home, you're stuck at home, you need entertainment. And through a lot of people that's from the South and different areas, it was football. And you have, and like he said, when you speak of sports being recession proof, you're not just speaking NFL, you're speaking NBA, you have MLB, you have NHL, you have, the WNBA, you have all of these different sports entities, that the main reason why they're recession proof is because people are going to need some entertainment. They're going to need something to watch. As human beings, we can't just sit around and do nothing. We'll drive ourselves crazy if we just sit in the house and look at the walls all day.
Right.
Who wants to do that? You want to do that, go get in trouble and go to jail.
Right. Exactly.
But who wants to do that? So by me seeing it as being recession proof, there's like, no matter where you go, you can go from here to the grocery store. You're either going to hear something about a sports team, or you're going to see little kids out at the local basketball court playing basketball, or you're going to see the little kids over at the soccer fields getting trained and getting ready to play soccer, or you're going to see baseball. You're going to hear baseballs being hit while you're at a park with baseball fields. It's just something that's embedded into us as entertainment, something that we foresee through our eyes and see that as entertainment. So it's not going to go anywhere. Just like you're going to always need wheels for cars, you're always going to need a roof over your head, you're always going to need electricity to make things work, and you're always going to need entertainment. And it's just something that's always going to be there and never going anywhere.
Absolutely. It's going to always be.
So, during this recession, people are saying that technology is still going to soar, right? So there are engineers that are in college right now that are working on their intellectual property, their intellectual capital to enhance, and they're focusing on blockchain, right? So I wanted to know what are your thoughts behind technology during the recession, and how is that applicable to what you both are doing with Fancentric and Alpha Genesis?
Yes. Go ahead. Go ahead,
bro. You got it.
No, when you say the word technology, when you hear technology, what do you think of? You think of a way to change the future, a way to change the way you earn, a way, to make it easier, or, ways to make things easier, ways to make a car go from here to there without having to use this much gas, and different things like that. And where crypto fits into that whole equation is when crypto was first started, it was looked at to be a currency. People, like, they didn't say it at the time, but it was going to be a currency. Even when you go back to the Silk Roads, it was used as a currency to buy things, and when you look at it now, like the technologies that these people are doing, that's changing the way we live, that's changing the way companies that's researching cancer is being funded. Right. That's changing the way a normal fan will be able to actually get their hands into the pot of a team. That's changing the way, even in the bearish of times, people can still earn. So when those times do get better, everything gets better. Right. And when I look at technologies, that's what I look at, the things that crypto is doing for the world, not just, for people's pockets. Whenever you can take one token, say, hey, we're gonna raise a DAO, and in that DAO is going to be proceeds that go to a cancer research, and in order to be a part of that, you're going to be able to use NFTs, just like Fancentric. Fancentric is a huge company that's like, it's so many different wheels that turn that it's going to have no other choice but to move. Because you look at it with the NFTs, the way they integrated the NFTs with what they're doing as fans. Now, instead of having a pre-sale, which, how pre-sales are, people are scrambling, trying to do this, right, trying to get the contract, trying to make sure you have your scammers that run, try to get the contract, put the contract out somewhere else, duplicate the page so they can get everybody's money. And you have all of that going on. And now you have Fancentric that's, going to release NFTs in order to participate in a token, that's going to change it, because you're not going to have to go to this website, to this nefarious website, and say, hey, I got to collect my wallet. I got to connect my wallet. Now you're being tracked through NFT technology, the blockchain technology, and the blockchain, that where when something's put there, it's always there. You will always be able to go back to that through a certain code of numbers and letters. So that's when I see the way the technology is changing things. That's how I look at it. What Fancentric is doing, what Alpha Genesis is doing, helping people earn during hard times. Not even just that, but helping tokens to create tokens, helping token to create the right token every step of the way, and to make sure that all steps are covered. That's where Alpha Ape comes into the equation with Fancentric, to make sure that Fancentric walks into crypto already, on point with what's going on with crypto. So the contracts, the smart contracts, because the NFT is nothing but a smart contract. That's all it is, a small smart contract. And people are using it to create different technologies. And when I say different technologies like Fancentric, hey, we're gonna have an opening to where people will be able to invest into Fancentric, and when they invest into Fancentric, they have a track that lets Fancentric know exactly, that person is investing into them, so they're not giving access to someone that's not deserving.
Right.
So it's all of those different technologies that plays a huge part in what's going on with Fancentric and Alpha Genesis and Alpha Ape.
So, Garrick, can you piggyback off of that and talk about the DAO for Fancentric for a moment, and how that's going to benefit your retail investors?
Well, from a DAO standpoint, and a lot of people may not be familiar with that term, but that's decentralized autonomous organization. And that's just a fancy word for us saying that it's a democratic society where you, the fans, get the opportunity to be a part of this engine, and everything that you're investing into this engine, you now have a voice. That was the same thing that I was saying, when it was hashtag GJ for GM. I was trying to give a voice to the voiceless. And ultimately, that's what this DAO will do. You have different DAOs for different situations, like the Lynx DAO. They formed a DAO in order to go out and buy golf courses, and those are for golf enthusiasts. My track is this sports space, and being close to the fans, and being on the outside looking in and being on the inside looking out of what this thing is all about and how it's ran, and really giving a voice to the voiceless, because your fans as well as your athletes are looked at as commodities. And I've said this, many times, and I'll stand on this heel. Without the athletes, you have nothing. Without the fans, you have a great idea and definitely nothing, because they're not funding what you're doing. But it's embedded into our DNA. As an athlete, we see guys on TV, we might be from a underserved area, and this is how we're going to help our families. To a fan, it's what you do. It's your outlet. And these teams know it. They understand the dynamics of psychology. Hell, they have people on payroll that, hey, you need to advertise like this, because this is going to get the best response from these test subjects, if you will. But for our movement, our DAO is going to allow individuals to buy and purchase NFTs at certain levels. And each one of those levels are going to give them certain amounts of perks and benefits in reference to being a part of Fancentric on the front end. And then what we're going to do after, we have this raise over the entire NFL season, we then finalize our structure. We finalize our operations, our budgets, everything that we need in order to now go out and partner with investors. That could be private equity firms, private investors, venture capitalists, it doesn't matter. We're going to bring a team together to now go out and source these deals and find these teams that are in financial turmoil, these teams that are a part of these trusts that have to be sold, these teams that are having these internal conflicts between the kids that inherited these teams. It's so many different aspects that go along with it to where these teams can now be sold. And beforehand, the thought of somebody that was a fan having some ownership or having somebody that represented them in an ownership structure, it was few and far between. But as I talk to people and I let them know, I'm like, listen, these are $1 billion teams, but here's how this works. We're going to come together. We're going to bring other investors in. And from there, we're going to put together a offer sheet, if you will, and say, hey, look, this is what we're doing. But in addition to coming in and purchasing this team or having the money to do that, here's all the other revenue generating streams we're going to bring to the table to now come in and be a solution to what you have going on with the NFL. Because we all know it's all about the bottom line. So if we're bringing some extra revenue to them, that feeds that monster, that feeds that ego. And if we're bringing solutions to the problems that, the NFL is having a hard time with, optically, we are more appealing than a lot of these other ownership groups because we have a movement that's for the people, by the people. The people have to speak. And that's the only thing that I've been preaching this entire time, is utilizing this DeFi space for that true disruption that they talk about all the time.
Yeah.
It's us coming together from a teamwork aspect, understanding what the end game is. And if we can come in and say, hey, look, we're going to come into this city and we want to target these teams, we might shoot for an NFL ball club. We might not get it, but they have soccer clubs, they have rugby clubs, they have baseball teams, basketball teams, all the way down to your semi-pro organizations. So once we start owning these organizations, all those perks and benefits go for each and every one of those teams. So a lot of people are season ticket holders to the Houston Texans, but not the Astros or the Rockets. If we come in and we purchase those teams, you have those season tickets all the way down to every aspect of what we have under management, asset-wise. So we want to be able to give the people a voice, give them discounts, give them a reason to be excited about the game, and being in it like we have. We've been around some of the best general managers, some of the worst general managers, some of the best team presidents, worst team presidents, coaches, the whole 9 yards. So we understand the dynamic of what that looks like. So we are going to change that whole dynamic as we, build from this fantasy football space that we have teams in, going into the developmental football league situation that we have under FanCentric. And eventually, once we purchase teams now, we just bring our people and we promote from within. So we truly incubate each and every person that's a part of this deal. Even the fans are learning about finances, business, all these different things, because we want them to be able to invest in other things outside of crypto and diversifying their portfolio, like Charles said earlier. So,
yes, sir.
Okay, so in our last few minutes, let's talk about transparency and utility. I think you both can speak to this and how transparency is really important as when it comes to KYC and audits. How have each of you approached this method, and how have you answered the question to people who may have questions about cryptocurrency during this recession?
Well, I'll tell you, the main thing is know who you're dealing with. That's one of the main things that you want to do when you're investing in this crypto community, and that's what makes it so important, because there's so many ways for people to, really get a hold of your money. And as an investor, there's nothing you can do to get it back. You're just giving your money to the blockchain, so that's why you must know who you're working with. When they say KYC, make sure that person is KYC'd. And the only reason why a person KYCs and a person docs themselves is if something happens, that company that KYC them will release their information to the lawyers, and the lawyers can proceed and, do what they need to do. That's why it's always good to deal with a token where the company has been KYC'd. You do know who is working with the company. And I've heard one of our main devs say all the time, when you're investing into these tokens, you're not investing into the token, you're investing into people that's creating these tokens. You're investing into people that's creating the technology behind these tokens. So when you're investing, you're actually taking the time to get to know who that person is. Is that a real person? Is that person has this person been around cryptocurrency for a while, or did they just come up with a name and create a token and throw it out there and say, hey, this is the token? You know, those are some of the things that, you know, a team that's doxed and KYC is a team that really cares, you know, that cares enough to put their name on the line and say, hey, this is me. This is the project. This is my product. This is my company. And if anything happens, I am the person to contact. And that's what you want to see. That's what you want to see, and that's what you want to be a part of. And I'm sure, you know, everybody understands that's what Alpha 8 does. You know, it KYCs, you know, companies. So and everybody's always wondering, like, how is this, you know, a legit KYC? They're all ran through one company, and that one company gives them the green light or the red light, or gives them things that they need to work on, and they relay it back. So everyone else that's providing these KYCs, they're just middlemen. Some are charging a lot more than others, just based on the name. So that's kind of what Alpha 8, when they came together, and they was like, you know, we know that not just, you know, the token holders, not just the investors get scammed, and, you know, also the devs and the CEOs of these companies, they get scammed as well, because they're told that things can happen, and things can't happen all the time, you know. And so it's very important, if you're in this space, to KYC, know who you're dealing with, make sure you go through the KYC, the company, make sure it's a legit company. One of the big things about Alpha 8 now is they work with DXL. So any of their if you get any of their KYCs and you're having a pre-sale, it's going to show up on DXL as a, you know, authorized KYC, like a real KYC, you know. So it's just some of the things of coming to the space legitimately and doing things the right way. You're able to do a lot more.
Any final words on that, Garrick? As far as
I'll chime in on it. I mean, we have a thing in the NFL, a saying, know your personnel. You can't go out on the field if you're a part of the wrong personnel for that particular play. And that's one of the things that I've learned personally in this space, and also everybody associated with this fan-centric project has learned. You know, there were a lot of things that we want to get accomplished in this space. We want to change the game. So in order to change the game, you got to play it. When it comes down to transparency, you know, folks know me, man. I'm not hard to find at all, you know, and I'll tell people to the day I die, man, listen, if you're close enough to me, you're more than likely to sit down with me at some point. And this is a space that isn't about that. You know, it's about, you know, a lot of secretiveness. There's a lot of, I want to say a lot of theft in some regards when it comes down to scammers, when it comes down to people not really being truthful in what they're doing. I've seen, you know, when we first started, you know, the whole fan-centric situation, I started keeping up with other projects. And unfortunately, you know, after a certain amount of time, those projects are no longer there because they got all the people's money and they shut everything down. So they rug pulled. But here I am looking at our project and I'm like, man, I hate that it's like that, because that's an automatic sign for a lot of people to look at what we do and say, okay, well, we were supposed to launch here and we didn't, you know, we were supposed to launch this time and it didn't. You know, there's a lot of uncertainty that goes on with this space. And one of the things you want to do is bring a lot of what we do in the real world into it, you know, and that's the KYC, that's the business structure. Hell, that's the business hours. You know, because they say crypto don't sleep. Now, crypto is going to have to sleep. You know, we're going to have some business hours, right? We're going to have this thing set up in such a way to where we're going to be able to transform a lot of what we're doing, you know, and a lot of what goes on in that space, because people have to have, especially with what we're doing, with bringing the sports fans into this space, and they're not really being from a crypto background. In order to get them in, we got to get them in and educate them. The same thing with us. I mean, I'm learning every day. It changes so fast and so rapidly. And there's so many things that can happen. But I think if you have people that are genuine and genuinely want to see people succeed and are in this thing for the right reasons, and not just trying to scam people, your project is going to be a success. I mean, you look at me, you know, I had the opportunity to play 12, 13 years in professional leagues. You know, once I retired, I could have just relaxed. You know what I'm saying? I could have been, I could have been cool. Charles would have been cool, right? Like, so it has something to do with us wanting to see more for people, us wanting to see more for our families, and it not just being, okay, I did my little time in the NFL, I'm gonna chill out, you know, I got my house,
Right.
I got this, I got that, so I'm good. No, that's something that's right there, but it's so much bigger than us. You know, this whole movement is bigger than me. To work as hard as we're working day and night. I mean, there's so many different sacrifices that go along with this. My kids have seen me work since they were babies. I mean, I'm conducting meetings and I'm rocking them while I'm conducting meetings in training for training camp. You know what I'm saying? And I'm working. I'm working because I know that, you know, with all this hard work we're putting into this thing, that it's going to come to fruition and it's going to change a lot of people's lives. And it's going to be for the better. We're going to be able to leave the world in a better place than when we got here. And that's the main thing, and setting this thing up to where it's going to be as fundamentally sound as possible, and no wasted motion. You know, we can't afford to have wasted motion. We've already done that, and I personally refuse to go through those trials and tribulations when it comes down to what we have and what we can do. So that's why we're taking the route we're taking with the Dow, bringing people in. And truth be told, once we get this thing established, we're looking to bring somebody in to replace me, because we got to have people in this space that understand it, understand how to grow businesses, how to scale businesses, especially in the crypto space. So we need to go after somebody who's been there, done that, and can take these visions of ours and turn them into something substantial. So yeah, no, it's all about transparency, man. I mean, I'm not going to be having meetings with masks on, and you know, I talk about the majority owner, you know, and have the caricature with the mask on, but everybody knows, you know, what's going on with me. I'm not hard to find. If it's a situation about, you know, money or whatever that somebody's invested, you know, at the end of the day, this space is that space. It's once you invest and once you put money into a project, you know, it's about making sure that your investors are in a good place. And if you're not making the strides to do that, you're wasting people's times. But we're here to change the game, man, and that's just what it is. So that's why we work as hard as we're working, and that's how we, you know, we're gonna end this thing the same way we started it.
Totally agree.
Right. So, you know, they say that the USDC market cap, I believe, was at $55 billion. So this policy is introduced on that stable coin, we're going to see payment systems change. And I think that you both are ahead of the game in all of this. So I want to thank you for this episode of Ballers and Crypto. I think it went well. The only thing we're going to ask for next time is that you both come out on your theme song.
I got you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, we'll have different athletes come in, guys that are in the crypto space, and they kind of talk about, you know, their projects and things of that nature. But we're going to do this every week. You know, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of each week leading up into the NFL preseason. And then what we'll do there is on those days that we have the preseason games, like, you know, I was with the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Chiefs, Atlanta, and Houston. So anytime they're playing, we'll have AMA or Ballers in Crypto, and then that's when we'll start having those NFT sales for Fan-Centric. So you guys can get in for a certain amount of time, and then after that, you know, we'll shut it down. And then when Charles's teams play, which is Minnesota and New York, and Houston, and what we'll do is we'll open those back up. So we'll have around like 17 different sales. We're gonna break it up. We're gonna turn this thing into something fun. We're gonna have trivia questions where we're giving away NFTs. We'll be looking to bring guys in, and we'll be looking to actually have some signed memorabilia. Anything that we can do to really get people in tune and enthralled with what we have on the table, just to be a part of this fan-centric community. Because if you get in now, you get the opportunity to touch some of the properties that we have now in the governance aspect of it and get going before everybody else comes in and we start looking at creating tokens for these different cities, which will every NFL city is on our target. But along with those teams, you have all these other teams that are part of those cities. So, man, it's going to be a good time. Like I say, we're going to start with the 32 here. It just makes sense to do that, but this is going to be a global phenomenon. And we're going to have a lot of fun with this thing, man. You know, we're just
ready
testing.
to go.
Yeah, man, we're testing the different, different aspects of IG Live, Facebook Live, Clubhouse, Twitter Spaces, just kind of meeting everybody where they are. So these are conversations, man. These are conversations. And eventually we'll have folks coming in with questions and, all kind of different things. So we're going to have some fun with it.
Most definitely. Most definitely. Thank everybody for coming out, man. It's Ballers in Crypto. This is what we do. We ball. We love crypto.
Yeah.
It's good being here with all of you.
Absolutely.
Corey, thank you. Thank you. Salute you. Thank you. You handled it very, very well.
You did that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very much appreciated. Okay. Absolutely. So you guys have a good evening. Everybody out there in Facebook land, man, y'all have a good evening, man. And we'll keep this thing going. There'll be plenty more updates. The website will be updated. That's www.fancentric.co. And you'll be able to see a lot of the different things that we're doing in reference to the DAO. We'll actually have this video in our video section pretty soon. We got some links going to Alpha 8 and Alpha Genesis, and we'll talk about that Alpha X pretty soon about how you guys will be able to purchase these NFTs with your debits and credit cards and not
technology.
have to go, not have to go the route of, crypto wallets and all these. I mean, we're going to make it as easy for you guys as possible. We want to eliminate all excuses. We want everybody to be a part of this. And we want to make this history other people read about. So we appreciate you guys.
All right.
That's it.
Thanks, sirs.
All right.
All right. See you.
Have a good one.